Today we're joined in the studio by Travis Loewen. Travis is a good friend of both Jeff and I, but from the trade, from our work as salespeople. We're really interested to learn about his perspective on commercial service as a project manager, as a team leader, and his new role kind of trading in his tools for a laptop and becoming a manufacturer's factory rep. Welcome, Travis.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So maybe we could start off with this phenomenal whiskey that you just got us. Tell us a little bit about that. Well, let's crack that bad boy.
Yeah. Lefroy. It's a select cask here, 1815.
Yeah. You're a whiskey guy, right? Like you're a Scotch guy.
Scotch guy.
Yeah.
I love it. It's my wife gets upset at me because every time I get a Friday payday, it's straight to the add another bottle to the cabinet, right? I think I don't know, 30 something bottles in the cabinet right now, and 2 are open. And
why are we doing this at his house?
Exactly. Right? Next one's my house. There you go, guys. Congrats on starting the new thing here. This is pretty cool.
Well, while I'm pouring, maybe you can give us a little bit of a background on you.
Sure. Yeah.
Give us a little bit of your history. Kind of how'd you come up? Where'd you do your apprenticeship?
Yeah.
Journeyman. What does that look like for Travis Loewen?
Yeah, exactly.
Back at you.
Funny enough, I never actually wanted to become a plumber. Mm-hmm. It was never really in the cards.
Cheers. For that.
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
Yeah.
But it was funny enough, I never actually wanted to become a plumber. It wasn't really in the horizon or kind of the thought process anyways going up. What was a firefighter, fire department. Dad's a firefighter, uncle firefighter, things like that. So come through firefighter family. And before I got into trade, I actually went through a cadet program with the Calgary Fire Department, went through, graduated top of the class, and then when I graduated high school, I was like, well, shit, I'm going to go apply to become a firefighter. Went through the process, got to the application, was told, go get a little bit more life experience. You're 18, you're pretty young, go get some life experience and come back.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's something. Why do you think they demand that? Don't they want people that are young and able?
You would think, a
little bit dumb
I was an arrogant kid and stuff like that, right? So, looking back now, I get why I was asked to go get some life experience, right? So, sat down, I thought about it, was like, firefighter, what would be good with a firefighter? Pumps, pressure, water, plumbing, let's go get my trade, get my ticket. I'll always be able to fall back on that.
You still get to play with water.
Still get to play with water, right? Exactly. Still get to put the wet stuff on, whatever else, right? The red stuff. And, it went from there. And I, called, I just went through the phone book, A to Z, what plumbing company is hiring right now, all the way through, and found one that was willing to take on, fresh out of high school, young kid, and ended up working with them for about 6.5 years. Got my journeyman's ticket with them. They were a small company. I was one of 3 journeymen by the end of it. And their mentality, it's a Dutch boy, like a Dutch guy, old Dutch guy. And, $10 an hour, you were lucky you were making $10 an hour type thing, right? And, I'd have to be there first thing in the morning to turn the heat on, turn the coffee on, turn all the old school, boat anchor computer monitors on, right? Shovel the walkway, things like that. And at the end of the day, I'd have to come back, shut the power off, shut everything off, because, God forbid, a LED light would stay on all night or something like that, right? But
and for our American friends, $10 an hour is actually $6 an hour.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So, it started out with them, and the journeyman I had was just phenomenal. Adam Burke, he was just a wicked guy.
Shout out Adam Burke.
Yeah, exactly. And he pushed me through to becoming, what I still reference him and his knowledge and his background. But he kind of pushed me through as, the customer's calling you, you're the guy on site, you figure it out. You're there, you better learn. If you don't know how, then you better figure out who to call that does know, right? So it was very much a, set you to the wolves type thing, but I'll be here to support you. And if you don't know, then we'll push you through the right direction, right? So started off with them, and like I said, 6.5 years with them all the way through, from greenhorn to journeyman. By the end of it, I was doing the quoting, the estimating in-house, hiring. Brought a couple of my buddies who are one's still there and now is taken over pretty much, which is pretty cool. But and from there, I never really thought about leaving them. Right. Their idea of a big boiler at the time was a super hot, or a, glorified barbecue type thing. Right. So it was like, pretty.
Basically boiling a pot of water.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Away you go. Right. So
a boiler.
Yeah. A boiler. Yeah. So that was kind of their, big boiler and scary type thing. Right. And I wanted to learn more. I was, getting used to what I was doing and getting used to the day-to-day, boiler call. Okay, well, the pilot is a high limit, flow switch. Okay, well, that kind of thing, right to it. I wanted to learn more, but I didn't have the guts to switch, right? You get comfortable with the devil,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, then the devil you don't. And so what I'm about to tell you has never left other than a conversation with my wife. So here you go.
Talking Apes exclusive, ladies and gentlemen.
Exclusive.
Travis Loewen, episode 8.
Yeah. I was fired from that small company because there was a bowl of chips in a suite, and we had drained the building down. It was midnight or something like that, and building froze up. Right, split and drained the whole building, and me and my apprentice there at the time, we were working, I think it was almost a 48-hour shift. By the time we were done bringing the building back up and going into suites, making sure each suite had their flow and nothing else was damaged or burst or anything like that. And the last unit had a bowl of salt and vinegar chips sitting on their table, just sitting on their table open. And, 48-hour shift, we were working like dogs, and it's no excuse. It was a weak moment. I looked at that bowl of chips as soon as I entered. I was like, oh, man, that looks good. I'm hungry, right? Ignored it, went through my business, did everything. As I was wiping down, cleaning everything up, I was like, okay, fine, one chip. Weak moment, one chip, right? Reached in, got a chip, ate it, no big deal, left, locked the door, threw the key under the door, and away we went, right? Well, that Friday, Adam, my journeyman, called me, and I had the Friday off, and family and I were off to go camping, and he's like, yeah, I need to talk to you. What are you doing? I was like, oh, well, just headed out for the weekend. Oh, well, I'll call you Monday. Yeah, all right. Thinking nothing of it, right? Like, okay, sure, whatever. Well, Monday came around. The person who owned the suite had a hidden camera set up, right? Saw me eat a chip out of this bowl. Called and complained to the property manager at the time, which was one of their biggest customers. And he basically said, he's like, listen, I either get rid of you or I lose our biggest customer. It's one or the other. And I looked, I was like, well, yeah, that's my fault. I shouldn't have done it.
Been a good run.
Yeah, it's like, it's been a good run. I'm not going to ask you to give up your biggest customer at the time, right? So parted ways, and that kind of let me forward into, everything else. So it was almost like that bowl of chips was almost like
the catalyst,
the catalyst, or the turning point of what would now become my current career, right? So it let me through to 2 other companies. From there, went to one of the other ones, and which at the time was one of the largest service commercial companies. I've always been a service plumber, never been a true construction, brand new or residential. It's been a mixture of both. It's either been residential or commercial service type thing, right? Kind of going from there, and then that second company is really where I got the itch and the bug for what is boilers, what is hydronics, what does it all mean? once I started going down that rabbit hole, that long, deep rabbit hole, right? It's just, there's so much that comes in at you, and there's so much to learn from it too, right? If you're the smartest guy in the room, find a different room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the motto, is just, where can I learn from, and what can I learn from, and when?
It's funny that when I started getting into boilers is when I was actually excited about being a plumber. Like in anything mechanical, and not residential, and not saying that residential isn't hard and you've got demands to meet, but the commercial, mechanical rooms, the varied systems that you're dealing with, how you're going to get it throughout. That is when, like, the planning and the forethought that went into it, that was when I was like, yep, now I can do this.
Yeah.
But the apprenticeship years and like the first 2 years, man, that was just like hit me in the head with a pipe wrench. Forget this.
Yeah, the gopher,
Yeah. No, it's funny, when I was an apprentice working with my dad, every Monday I'd have to answer 3 code questions, and if I didn't get them right, I was a helper for the week.
There you go.
And that sucked, being a 3rd year, 4th year. And you're like getting fittings for 2nd years.
Makes you humble, right?
Yeah.
And the next time you ask that question, you'd know the answer.
Yeah.
Well, talking about, kind of the apprenticeship and the come up, we had a conversation, very interesting conversation yesterday with a gentleman who's been in the industry quite a while, talking about how a lot of the apprentices coming up don't really seem to have a full-fledged education and knowledge. Now, you ran a very successful service division for an organization on the commercial side. You guys had apprentices come up, I'm sure, through your business. What was the philosophy for education and training there?
Yeah. So, being the service manager there and kind of running that organization, how I started doing and how the team actually started doing it was just that it's a team, right? There's no individual, there's no, the mentality that we had there is, as a service manager, I was working for those guys. And if I wasn't doing my job correctly, they weren't moving up the ranks, or they weren't being pushed. So it was very much a focus of giving them the knowledge and giving them the training that other companies want them. But then treating them with the respect and giving them, what they feel the value of a wage in their eyes would be, right, to keep them, right? So with that kind of mentality as to what what we were doing with it, it was very much if one person knew more than the other, they were teamed up, and it would be deliberately, the individual who knows more would kind of hang back and let the apprentice, or let the novice journeyman or something like that, kind of take the lead and run with it. If they made mistakes, great. That's when you learn. Yeah. Right.
So being predominantly a service company, what was your ratio of journeyman to apprentice?
Yeah. So we were mostly a journeyman. We had like 4 apprentice actually, which is, as a service company, it's pretty, and especially a commercial service company there, it was pretty rare to have that few apprentice. We were very journeyman heavy. But with that, and being the service, you're allowed to kind of, push them out of the nest a little bit more and let them fall on their face and let them, go do a whatever service call and let them struggle for a few hours. Right? And then after that, you deal with the invoicing separately, and you kind of take a few hours away so the customer doesn't have to see the learning expense, right? That's, they shouldn't really be charged for that. But, it's, put them into those hard situations is what, kind of the mentality was, and let them fall, let them learn, right? And then, be there for support. If they had questions, give them a call, go out. I was, as a service manager, should have been in the office doing the, okay, here's the bottom line. This is what we're, the motions of, running that multi-million-dollar side, right? But man, it was hard to get off the tools. It really was.
It is. It's tough because I think the appeal of a lot of trades is that you're working with your hands. You're kind of out. You're doing a wide variety of things, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, get in the office.
Yeah. Pant size gets bigger.
Yeah.
A little more.
Let's not go there. Not during the COVID.
So if they did have issues, I mean, I was the first one out there.
Yeah.
And I think that created and solidified the team there too. Right. It's like, okay, well, my boss is, he's not afraid to come out at 2:00 in the morning and run a drain machine with me. Like that's, and help me learn how a drain system works, right? But no, and that's, you're only as good as your weakest link, right? And if you're not supporting your weakest link, you're failing as a journeyman, for one, right? And then you're failing as a lead for your team.
So how would you work with your journeymen in making sure that they were good teachers?
Yeah, so not everyone's a good teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah. Man, that's tough because I definitely did, rely and crutch on a couple key guys who I knew were good teachers, right? But, you do have to bring that journeyman level or that next, that new journeyman that's from a fourth year to journeyman now, or, they come out of school, their head's this big, they know everything, right? That's the perfect time to start learning. And it's to start learning on, how to teach the next generation, right? Okay. So how to get them to teach there, again, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, setting them up, almost how I would do it, I would give them, not necessarily gift wrap something, but I would give them a task and leave it kind of open-ended, right? Knowing they'd have two choices. And I'd make it deliberate so the easy choice would be the wrong choice and would set things up in the future for just a whole nightmare of mess, and then they'd be the guy going back to the call, he'd be the guy doing whatever, and they'd learn one way or the other, right? Or you'd set them up for something that'd be a little bit more difficult, but you knew they'd take something from it, right? So, letting them, getting them to teach onto that. Like our Monday mornings, we'd have a powwow. We'd sit down, have kind of like a sales powwow, and so-and-so did a great job on Tuesday, this customer recognized them, right? But I'd pick at least one person, I'd have them bring up a topic, or I'd have them bring up what have you noticed this week, and what do you want to share? What do you want to learn, or what do you want to teach or tell the rest of the crew? So if they come across something like that, they're not going through the same problems you are, right? So each time we had a Monday meeting or service meeting, right? It'd be a rotation. It'd be one person every week. They wouldn't know who it was. It'd be okay, your turn, Jeff. What'd you learn this week that you want to share with the rest of the group? And what made you better last week, or what mistakes did you make last week that's going to make you better this week? Right?
I learned you could use zip ties for a belt this week. In a pinch.
Yeah, exactly.
So being a service company, how important and how regular were your trainings? Like from internal and external sources, right?
Yeah, so at the start it wasn't really that great, to be honest. Because I was new to the role and I was trying to please, the upper management, the owners and the investors, stuff like that. Only did it start to kind of get in line is when I sat back about my history and kind of, what did I appreciate coming through the trades, and what did I like when I was on the tools, and what kind of things do I want to make this service division my own. Only did it start to get a little bit more of the training, right? So a lot of guys were more focused on the sales side and getting their blue seal type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
sorry, I'm a little lost. What is the blue seal? What is the difference between? I know what a red seal is. What is the blue seal?
So the blue seal is more of that business
it's the
side.
Colorblind seal.
Is more that business side. the some of the people skills. There's a little bit of accounting into it, a little bit more of the soft skills that go along with the trade.
Yeah.
Because every tradesperson and journeyman is a sales guy. Yeah. You're selling yourself, right? You're selling your ability to that customer. You're selling your, your confidence. You're selling, your trust. You're building that relationship with the customer, right? Yeah, you're a plumber. Yeah, you're a trades guy, but you're a salesman, right? You're selling yourself. Mm-hmm. So the blue seal side of it is kind of that soft skills, how to sell yourself, how to, it's like an MBA, but not, thing, right? And then you can go further and get your gold seal, and that's more on the construction side, quoting, how to do that kind of thing, right? So there are a lot of journeymen that, they were more focused on, how do I get and how do I develop that soft skill side of things? So we'd sit down and, okay, this is what I recommend. There's the blue seal, and through the blue seal, there's tons of different avenues you can go, right, to becoming, sales or sell yourself or be more comfortable selling yourself, right? So a few guys went that route, and a couple other guys wanted more of the, the boiler training type thing, right? It's such a broad, like it's such a wide net. Like how do you narrow down on boiler training, right? Because it's it's controls, it's electrical, it's pumps, it's hydraulic, it's the fluid and the media that you're pumping through, it's high efficient, atmospheric. Like there's just so much in it that
where do you start?
Where do you start? So, and that was it. Like a lot of guys that come up, it's if they haven't dealt with boilers at all, it's that that next level they want to get to. It's the infamous boiler level, the boiler training, the boiler guy. They see, like, man, when I was a second year, I think, like Adam, shout out to Adam again. I was beating my head on this one. I think it was I can't remember the boiler, Camus or something like that. But beating my head on this thing, like, what is going on? He comes in. Ask me a couple pointed questions, which I now recognize, right? At the time, like, what the heck does that have to do with anything, right? Some key pointed questions, and walks over 15 minutes, it's fixed. And I've been on the call for like 3 hours, 4 hours, something ridiculous, and just like mentally blocked, right? So, those new journeymen coming up, they want the boiler train. So I said, okay, well, what do you know about boilers? What do you want to know about boilers? Do you want to know more about the control side of things? Know more, about the design of the heat exchanger or the venting or, pumping? But like, what do you want to know? Because boiler training it's so broad. Like, there's so much to it. Where do you start?
How did you find, like, going to school here? How did you find the training, their coverage on hydronics in the?
I mean, it gets you through. The trainers and everything there, I mean, they're doing their best at what they could with what they had, right? And the tech at the time, right? The instructors were great, but only when I really started to learn about hydronics was when I became a journeyman.
Yeah.
Right? Like going through the trade school, it's a taste. It's like putting your pinky toe in the pool to see what temperature the water is, right?
So do you think hydronics should have a different certification?
Man, it's yeah.
And I know you're selling boilers now, so
yeah, I am selling boilers now. Yeah, man, that's I never really thought about it too much. Like in a way, you should. Yeah, I could see it becoming its own certification or its own trade or something like that. Maybe not, but yeah, definitely. Because Class A gas fitting, right?
Yep.
There's that next level onto it, right? Maybe having a hydronics 2 or something like that, or hydronics A level certification onto it too.
Yeah, you could do it, and you could follow almost the same theory of your A ticket and B ticket gas ticket, right?
You could,
up to X amount of BTU, you get to work on this size boiler, right? So, I mean, I know that for commissioning, you have to have that anyway, but, you know, whether it's residential or commercial or, you know, tying in with multiple systems like solar and geothermal. Now,
Exactly.
right? So,
Yeah. No, there's tons out there right now, and there's a lot of guys that are doing it better than others, for sure, right? And you know, having a media like this or a venue like this is kind of allowing everyone to kind of get together and maybe speak to it, and you know, get the industry up as a whole.
you know, and it's funny, like, and that is kind of the intention of what we're trying to do is trying to get a collective measure on what can actually help progress the industry, because the industry seems to kind of be run by a generational aspect, right? Like, so you got your old guys who are just like, oh, well, that's what we've been doing and it works.
It's worked for
and
25 years.
And we're not going to change it, right? And then you get like, then you kind of almost skip a generation. You get into these like super tech, I'm a controls master, and you know, look at all my apps on my phone that tell me every boiler I've installed out there, and it's you know, there's no real happy medium on how do we progress and how do we keep the industry educated moving forward, right? So
and that's exactly, like, it's, you know, you come out of school as a journeyman, but it's not necessarily you've learned everything, right? You haven't. And
almost is the opposite. You know enough to start learning.
You know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what it is. You know enough to be dangerous. And if you come out with your red seal or something like that, your head's this big, you're Mr. Know-It-All, right? But really, it's the perfect time to start learning.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what gives you the license to be sent to the wolves, right?
Exactly.
Like, oh, you got a ticket. You're legally allowed to work on this. Like, go fix it. Hot
Good
shot.
luck. Good luck.
So what do you think about having mandatory continuing education credits to keep your ticket valid?
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's because I mean, if you just get your ticket and you're not having those, you know, I like the idea of the mandatory onto it, because it's forcing you to continue your education in one form or another.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and there's a lot of guys that are proactive, but there's a lot of guys that kind of stay with what they know.
Yeah.
Right. And,
they're comfortable with what they know, and they just kind of, you know, it's the copper of the world and the copper pipes, and you know, solder this and that's it. You know, we've done it, or lead and oakum or whatever, right? You know, like it's you know, it's worked for 25 years. Why change?
Yeah.
Right. But there's so much more out there, and technology just keeps improving and increasing. If you're not keeping up with that and you're not learning about it, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Well, I think it's even if you're not staying on top of it, you're not really doing a service to the end user, the customer, right? Yeah. Because you're not providing them with options that may be more beneficial, because the technology has changed and improved to be better, right?
Yeah.
I think that we're installing a lot of, you know, I'd say middle-aged stuff, because it's all stuff that the old guard knows and installs, and they're not going to change it. But it still works,
you know. It's still
tried and true. There's still a good argument to have hot water tanks, though, right? Like, they're not efficient, they're not good, but like, there's a time and place where you need that big dump of water, right? So, so I get it, but it's something that I think they need to kind of have that. Here's your option A, option B, and option C, right? So,
well,
good, better, best type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, in speaking of, you know, equipment, I mean, it's kind of triggers something that I wanted to ask you. Coming from, you know, primarily a commercial service, that's kind of what I've gathered. How many projects that you get called on are, you know, barely new, barely out of warranty installations, or even still in warranty, and then you're called in and it's an equipment malfunction or just a gross installation, right? Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, this is a maybe a big topic, because for me, working on the sales side, not being a tradesperson, not seeing that and working through some of those issues and problems, you know, when I as a salesperson, and now you as a salesperson, walks into an office, talks to an engineer, talks to a contractor, and tries to tell people about the value of quality installation, quality workmanship. And there's so many projects out there. And I find it to be, there's like a trend of certain types of projects, especially the ones that, are just shoot out of the towers that shoot out of the ground and are ready to go in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
As a more, compared to some of the, the ones that have a lot of fanfare and, publicity built up in the news, they take, 6-7 years to build. And usually they spend the millions of dollars they need to on not only the equipment, but, whether it's the envelope or the structural stuff, whatever it is. What would you like to see change in the way, it's almost like you got fast food, you have fast fashion, it's like fast construction.
That's exactly what it is, yeah. And lately it seems to be who can get the most for the least type thing, right? Who can get the most out of the building for the least amount put into it, right? And that's, and everyone's racing to the bottom. It's
But do you think people have stopped selling because they're just like, well, they're just going to go with the cheapest? Like, we have to be the cheapest in order to get this job. Do you think people have stopped selling?
Maybe in some retrospect. I don't know if everyone's stopped selling, right? Because I still firmly believe that, there's an A-grade level product here that should be installed, right? Boilers. And there's an A-grade level product that should be installed and installed properly, right? And here's the steps that need to be taken for that to happen. Yes, there's going to be a cost increase to it, and yes, there's probably going to be a little bit of a labor increase into it, but the result for the end user is going to be by far better than if you were to just take that good, bare minimum code. So that's what it is, bare minimum acceptable, right? Code, and go from there, right? Like it's like the trend right now on getting the fast food or the fast construction. I like that analogy. It's too much, like it needs to.
But do you think the end user is being educated? Like, do you think
Definitely
when a general
not.
contractor is?
Absolutely not. I think that's the problem. Is that
how do we connect that? That's the suggestions that I think we need to get, almost the consultation with. Okay, these are the trades.
Mm-hmm. When I was with the previous company, there was a service manager. I would get in front of the condo boards or the management groups and the ownership group.
Would you ever bring a manufacturer in?
I would, yeah, all the time. I bring in, this is what we're quoting, this is why we're quoting it, and this is why our value is where it is, right? And this is, here's the guy who represents this product that we're telling you to put in, right? And I'd set up a, one-to-one powwow with them, and we'd sit down. Sometimes there'd be 30 people in the room, depending on whatever it was. And then other times they'd open up the condo board up to an open mic night type thing.
AGM.
Yeah, like an AGM type thing. And everyone would come in and they'd be like, okay, well, Joe Blow's plumbing down the road, his price is half the cost. Why should we go with yours? It's like, well, here's
have you not been listening?
Yeah. It's like, here's the added value we've given you, and we believe in our worth, and that's what we're, if you want to go rock bottom price, go down and get the rock bottom price.
We'll be back. We'll
be back and we'll fix it for you. But this is our value. This is what we're worth.
Yeah.
Profit shouldn't be a dirty word.
So what do you think if we went from like the new building construction, and not residential, but new commercial,
multifamily, all that stuff?
Yeah. What would you think about, okay, now we've had 15 estimates come in on the same job, right? Yeah. These are the top 3. Now the top 3 can go in there and justify their price to the decision maker.
Yeah.
And making that part of like a mandatory thing. Okay, Travis, you're 15% higher. Why?
Yeah. Like I said, I've been in that exact situation before. I appreciate it and I love it. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it gives me a chance and my group and my team a chance to explain our worth and our value and why we are 15% higher.
And right in front of your competitor,
exactly.
too, which I think is very important, right?
Yeah, I've been in one where, you know, like all of our competitors, we were all sitting outside in the waiting room, you know, side by side, right?
Yeah.
We knew the project, we knew everything about it. Heck, we even knew each other's prices, right? And you know, we'd be called in one at a time, state your case.
How many
case.
competitors?
There's 4 of us.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was you know, it was nailed down. It was like open market type thing on everything, right? Everyone showed up to give their price and their bid, and it was nailed down or whittled down.
You think that should be a mandatory thing? And I ask you this because you're a Canadian you work for a Canadian manufacturer now.
I do.
And sometimes your pricing is going to be 10 or 15% higher for the product.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So to go in there and say, yeah, our boilers are Canadian.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we're paying more, but we're supporting Canadian.
Yeah.
And that's
supporting local, supporting
support our own.
You know, in the US it's a big thing. I like what they do, right?
Yeah.
I like that there's an option there,
Yeah.
right? You know, I think going in there and talking about your prices.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, at times I can be almost too transparent type things, right? Which is good, almost a fault, but I mean, I'm okay talking about it and, you know, laying it out for everyone to know about why we're the Class A,
Yeah.
you know, boiler out there and why it's the better product of everything, right? But it's still, you know, as like a construction industry type thing, I don't think it has its place all the time, because there are those relationships that, you know, you've worked hard to grow and maintain and keep, and you would hope that those relationships net you those jobs down the line.
Mm-hmm. So like including special projects and stuff like that would be relationship business. I know that these guys do good work.
Yeah, like if you've proved yourself, you should, even if they do open it up, you would think that they would come back to you.
But do you not think like the general contractor would be able to say that? Like, I've worked with this company, like I know that you've heard from 3 people, but I've got a long-standing relationship. I know they finish the projects on time. Like there can be influence there.
Yeah, and you would hope there would be.
Yeah.
Right.
Relationships.
And maybe not necessarily have to come in and state your own case on that, because you've built those relationships that whoever's now talking on your behalf, right, and proving your worth.
Yeah.
Right. But on the large, you know, oh man, I'm 50-50 about it. I really am. I'm like because I've been on both sides.
Well, the only reason I say that is because there's so many people, like we're all sitting at the counter going like, I was beat by fucking 10%. Like I can't keep getting beat by 10%.
I was beat by $2 on a $100,000 job.
Oh my God.
And you know, if you had like now you've spent how many hours bidding that $100,000?
Yeah,
putting the
exactly.
proposal
You've
together.
put everything in.
Is it not worth another hour just to go
on
in
that
and
side
sit
of it?
down?
Definitely. Like I wanted to, you know, chew the ear off those guys for another 3 hours type thing. But it did. At the end of the day, it came down to, you know, it was a relationship and it was a price factor, which, you know, $2, but
I mean that is where you get to like do the apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't expect the end user to be as educated as we are.
No.
And I think that was the question: is so what proportion of, you know, in your service management days, what proportion of that client, the face-to-face liaison, what portion of them was condo board, which is basically a bunch of laypersons?
Yeah.
Lay people, is that the word? And then what percentage of them was property managers who have some literacy in, you know, the technical world? And yeah, I mean that.
I would say, but that would be what Travis, what you're talking about with like having that relationship. They have a little bit of knowledge, but I think they have more confidence in who their partner is.
Yeah, in the past, you know, Travis's Plumbing did, you know, these 30 jobs for us, and, you know, he met them on budget, on time, every time. You know, it's that kind of thing, right? But no, like the dealing with the, you know, the condo boards and the property management type things, it was almost intertwined. right? Because the property management represents the condo boards in some cases. Sometimes they're privately owned and you get them all to yourself, right? But in some cases, those property managers represent the condo board. So, you know, if you break through the property manager, then you get a seating with the condo, right? So, but yeah, no, every time we did something, whether it was you know, a quote or even a service call, it was open communication with whoever was asking us to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, every once in a while, I'm sure when you had one, I'm going to kind of stick on this topic. I'm very interested in this. You know, I live in an apartment building with a condo board. I sit on the condo board. You know, the mechanical contractor that works on our building was comes through a reference from me, people that I knew.
Yeah.
Right, and you know, I understand a little bit about the industry, and we have a pretty technical building. So that's why I wanted to maybe put this question to you. In some of these condo boards, there's always a chance that one of those, you know, guys or girls is an engineer or a former tradesperson, or, you know, a project manager for a construction company, right? And you're going to get that person that either you click and they get exactly what you're talking about, and they almost,
or you fight and you can't get on the same page, and no matter how hard you try, it's you know, you just can't get it. Yeah, more. Yeah, I've been there before too. I mean, at that point in time, if it's just like a personality thing, and you know, you've tried to explain them in a rational way, in a factual way, and you know, this is what it is, right? And you can't get over that personal boundary. I mean, heck, I don't get along with everybody, right? I've been told I'm a hard ass at times, right? So I mean, there's times where you have to know who your audience is and when to, you know, sub out and bring the next person in, right? Because if you're not getting that, everything does boil down to relationships, right? You know, if you're not meshing with them, or you don't see eye to eye, disagreements are great. But if you're having it all the time and it's a constant battle,
as long as they're constructive disagreements.
If they're constructive and you're progressing together, that's perfect, right? But if it's just arguing for the sake of arguing, you know, get someone else to, you know, because, you know, there have been times where, you know, I haven't meshed with whoever it is and say, okay, you know, I'll back off. Here's whoever taking over my place, good luck. And they'll close the job and everything moves on fine, and away it goes.
Right. And I think that's also a good time to bring in third-party people as well, right? And just for that, right? Different perspective, different attitude, different personalities, right?
Exactly.
If there was one easy fix, it doesn't have to be low cost, something easy that most condo boards, property managers, you know, commercial or residential multifamily properties could do, like just some kind of easy retrofit that would drastically improve the comfort, quality of life from a mechanical perspective, what would that one thing be that you think that every building should invest in? Maybe
well, that's easy. Regular maintenance.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you wouldn't do half an oil change, right? So why get a contractor in to only do half an inspection, right? You know, do regular maintenance. Like, that's going to save the amount.
But it's not even just like being on top. It's about performance, especially with our new stuff today.
Yeah.
If they're not cleaned thoroughly, you're getting maybe 70% flow on a boiler, which means it's 70% operating. Right.
So it's, you know, there's so many other things out there too, like, you know, BMS, building management systems, that you can log into, and certain boilers have that capability, and Wi-Fi control and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's, you know, getting in there to do that regular maintenance, right? Like just making sure everything's working the way it should, change filters, you know, making sure the
drawing amperage on pumps, like
exactly.
Just all the preventative, like all the things to say, okay, you know, this probably has a year left if you want to be
and the good
confident.
thing, and the nice thing too, like with preventative maintenance, is you're hopefully catching the problem before it becomes a midnight Christmas whatever.
It's the difference
call,
of being
right?
proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
Right.
So
What do you think about? This is just a kind of off the cuff. What are your thoughts on one? We'll maybe start with this. The copper versus PEX, right? And I live.
Well,
I'll use our building
now.
No, there's
There's some copper versus plastic. Let's say that, right?
Okay.
And then the broad spectrum of plastic and everything that is there under it. I'm just going to use that as a broad spectrum term.
Yeah. Okay.
Our apartment building is copper. All throughout the garage, you can see tons of insulated lines, and every few months
There's a pinhole.
there's pinholes.
Yeah.
Right, and all of a sudden the one part just gets sopping wet, starts dripping. You got to call the guy in, and it's always on an elbow, it's always on a T, it's always on a connection.
It's always somewhere where you can't isolate, and you got to shut down the entire building.
Exactly.
People are upset because they can't get a shower in. And yeah. How many times have you been there?
Oh man.
And what are your thoughts? Is that a region-specific issue because of hard water, or do you think that it's just something that maybe people should, be very cautious about?
Yeah, like our we do have hard water, so I mean that might be some of it too. Other things, I mean, a lot of guys like to drastically oversize because they're afraid to undersize, right? If you oversize a pump and have too much flow for a recirculation line, no one's going to complain because they have hot water right at the taps.
Yeah.
Right? If you undersize that pump and at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, when they want a shower and they have to wait 10 minutes, you're going to hear about it. Right? So, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with just a lot of guys in the industry are so afraid of that undersizing and getting that call of we're not happy, come fix it. So they put in that extra 20 or 30%, factor in to cover their butt to make sure they don't get that, midnight call or that leak or whatever, right? Or that, unhappy customer. And I think a lot of that too, especially, if you're talking about recirc lines and leaks and drips, that has so much effect on the fittings, the 90s, the T's, stuff like that, right? Because the turbulence you're pushing through and you're seeing, right, sometimes you want, 1 inch pipe, you want to see 4 gallons per second or something, or 4 liters per second or something like that coming through roughly, right? Well, if you're oversizing and you're putting 10 per second, you're just cavitating and you're eating away the walls of the pipe, right? Yeah. And then you're getting leaks everywhere. So, I think one, if guys actually stuck to maybe like if they are worried, like 5% increase of what is actually required would probably be safe. But that's where the plastic side kind of has a little bit more of that buffer zone. And, I haven't worked with much plastic in my time, right? I mean, I've been primarily copper and, a little bit here and there, that fusion weld stuff, right? But, for what I have worked with and have had the first hands-on experience, I mean, that plastic stuff is great. The warrant, like, I'm selling plastic pipe now, but it's good though, right? Like it
but
has
this is kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Shit factor built into it.
The old school versus, hey, maybe let's learn about that.
Let's try and learn it a little bit and find out what's actually, what actually is happening within it if it is better, right? There's been stuff out there. Everyone knows what Poly B is, right? And it's not because it's good, right? It's it's because it was.
But do you think that first attempt is the
I think
stigma?
It's soured. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. It soured the whole plastic side, and it kind of scared everyone away.
Because I mean,
bit, right?
I know a lot of veterans in the industry, the 30, 40 plus, guys and women who are just like, I will not use plastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, not to put him on the spotlight, but I kind of am. My father-in-law, when it was my first crack at doing an actual full-blown plumbing job. So I served as his apprentice on our bathroom remodel, and we put in, it was the shower valve we put in. It had 3 outlets. So you had the tub spout, and it was they had a thermostatic mixing valve as well. You had a shower and you had a hand shower, so 3 separate valves. And he roughed it all in. And I, at the time, had a really good, I worked for an organization that could get me free or very low cost, push connect fittings, plastic pipe, all that, all that good stuff. And I mean, the valves had been generously provided. I mean, the shower, the valves, they'd all been generously provided by a manufacturer that I worked for at the time. And he said, no chance in hell am I using plastic. The only place that he said he would use plastic, and he crimped it, was underneath the bathtub, like and he added shut-off lines for the shower valve and everything. And he said, that's the only place I'm putting in plastic.
Just no
But
faith.
everything else is copper, and it's like 7 clips for each line. And he said, a tornado is going to come through this building. The only thing that stands is going to be the shower valve, right?
That's good.
And I mean, the quality of work, the workmanship is unreal. And I mean, it was cool to learn how to solder. That was, by far one of the most interesting takeaways from that experience.
It's an art. It really is. And I think it's a dying art now too. Right.
But it can be, because the industry is kind of progressing away from it.
It is. Yeah. But
it's like lead and oakum.
Exactly. yeah, exactly. But no, like it's, the soldering side of things I think it is a dying art because,
clean,
good. Yeah.
soldering.
Without
not
the
chroming your
drips
pipe
and
soldering.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Without, the drips and everything. And, a lot of guys can't solder 4-inch pipe, right? Like, they put a torch to one side and they expect it to heat up the same way, like a half-inch fitting does or whatever, right? And they put this, and they try and work it in that way. And next thing you know, you did a 10-hour shutdown. You got 3 valves you had to solder in, 4-inch, and now you got pinholes.
Not cheap.
Not cheap.
Yeah.
What's your thought? I mean, from what I've understand, from reading brochures and spec sheets, because that's my understanding, and a little bit of on site walks and talking to tradesmen and women. The advantage really comes to switching to another different type of fitting as opposed to soldering when you get into that 2, 3, 4-inch sizing.
Yeah,
right?
And that's there's so many advancements into what really I didn't really like. It was just coming out when I was still on the tools.
So there's a lot of maybe not.
Maybe not. Do I really want to trust this? Do I really want to be the first guy to put it in? And or should we wait a little while and see what happens? Right.
It's actually, I mean, it's funny that you said that. I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, it's crazy that technology has evolved and become such a staple in such a short time.
Well, right? But you have to think that, like, what has changed in order to make this popular? Like, now, in order to do any hot work, you're like, it's a major process.
Yeah.
Back when I was plumbing, like, you showed up and you shut the building down, and that was your building then.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do any of this safety that you're doing now.
Yeah, now you got to do hot work permit. You got to sign off onto it. You have to have a walkthrough now. You have to have depending on the site and the building, fire watch every couple hours, right, or every hour. Got to walk the entire building.
And you're paying somebody there to literally do a fire watch.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's substantial.
I mean, I know that they still do the fire watch for roofing, right? Because that's.
Yeah, but again, like, that has been an evolution of the trade, because that never happened when I was on the
Interesting.
tools.
Wow.
Yeah, shit. I remember being like hogtied with, there was a steam boiler I had to go into. There's a sensor at the back, and journeyman, like I literally couldn't fit with my coveralls on. So I stripped down to my shirt, my boxers, and I had a rope tied my ankle, crawled in through, journeyman spraying me with a hose because it's freaking hot in there.
Yep.
Spraying me with a hose. Fixed the sensor, said, okay, yanked me out, right? Like, you're not going to do that now. Like, if you were to try to do that, you'd be shut down. You'd be like...
Instantly.
So
maybe this is a question for both of you guys, because, having worked in that environment, is the way we do things today better? Safer for sure.
Yeah.
Is it more conducive to good work, the right work?
So here's my take on it. In a day like today, when we're talking about fast construction, a lot of people don't take into consideration the amount of time it takes to prep up, to do all the things necessary to be safe.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, 5 years ago, I paid you this much to change that sensor out. Now you're like 3 times the price. And I know inflation hasn't been that much. And it's like, well, let me tell you.
Here's a stack of paperwork I have to now do to change that sensor.
Yeah. And it's tough justifying that because people don't believe it.
No.
Interesting.
So there's also some instances where it's too much. Right. Like,
yeah.
And I say this because like, if I was to go work in a mechanical room today, it would be hard hat off. Music would be on, which is, you can't do anymore.
No.
Right.
Well, you can, you just don't get caught.
Yeah. Lock the door from the inside.
Right? It's, like things like that have changed so much just from the short time that I've been, like 16 years. Like, it's not that long. It's a drop in the bucket. Right. But going from, having a rope tied to my foot to get into there to now it's okay. Now I got to take the whole boiler apart. There's asbestos in there. There's whatever. You got to get remediation. You got to do this. You got to do that. What was a 3-hour job is now a 3-month job. Right. So it's.
Hey, when I was pipe fitting, I used to have our junior apprentice. He would fake an injury so we could get our shutdowns done faster. Anything to keep the safety guy busy.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, so much has changed in such a short time, at a rapid pace. It really has.
Yeah. But it is. It's a lot of accountability. It's a lot of covering your own ass now.
And I think that's where that, that new plastic maybe has the advantage too, right? Because, the prep work for copper, you ream the inside, ream the outside, you sand it, you flux it, you clean everything off, right? You put it all in, then you solder and you do the fire watch, right? Well, the plastic, there's not much of that, right? Like you cut it out, maybe you flare it, maybe you deburr it, maybe you do whatever, maybe put a different ring on it, maybe you expand, whatever. There's so many varieties out there now. Push it all together and you're done.
The only thing that's negative, and now that you're seeing a lot of boilers that you're not piping, you're probably seeing a lot of different, varied ratio or, tolerances of quality
better,
installations, right? And when you're using plastic pipe, the one thing that you have to consider is that plastic pipe has a very different expansion contraction than,
you get the
than a hard
spaghetti
pipe.
noodle that happens and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah.
So,
and so plastic, I know that the new polypropylene is the expansion is not that big. Like on a 2-inch line, 100 feet, it's about 2.5, which is very similar to copper.
yeah, exactly.
Right. But on PEX, you're getting, I think, 7 inches on a 80-degree temperature rise in 100 feet. So that is pulling out clips from walls and hammering and everything, right?
Yeah.
So, but when it comes time to doing closed rooms and hot permits, plastic is beautiful because you're not getting to the point of combustion with anything.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I know that the biggest concern, one of the biggest concerns with plastic is smoke ratings, right? And that's a big, on the engineering side, on the safety side, on the liability side, there's a lot. I mean, that maybe goes more under your DWV stuff or your product, more than your supply or your boiler lines and your loops and whatnot. I mean, you can't do plastic for a rad. Are there rads that run plastic?
Supplies? Or the actual radiator?
No, there's nothing that has plastic.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right? I mean, and because it doesn't have a heat transfer coefficient
But you have
at
to
all.
think that you're using plastic pipe and a transfer plate for underfloor.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
right.
That's
which is running the same temperature as a high efficient baseboard now.
Yeah, true. So maybe this is an interesting kind of topic because this is a hotly contested. There's a lot of people that are on one side where I'm copper, I'm iron, I'm cast iron, I'm this, and then you have a lot of people that are ABS, PVC, PEX, polypropylene. Did you ever find that there was projects that you would walk into or do an inspection and go, okay, this were there particular projects that needed that switch out, that
needed a certain one or the other? Yeah. I mean, I'm a little old. I love the look of copper. Like there's nothing prettier than a well laid out mechanical room in copper. Right? It looks.
I used to be that.
good.
I used to be that as well. I really did. And I went through a serious debate when we were starting to use the crimp on copper. And I was like, no, solder. It's got to be solder. Like, you pussy, get that.
But not necessarily soldered, but just copper. Looks good, right?
But you can make the plastic.
You can
look good, and it doesn't have to be insulated. A lot of it has an insulation factor now.
Yeah.
The copper looks so good.
Yeah.
But when you leave and you come back a month later, the insulator's been in there, everyone else has been in there, the taper, the paint, whatever, right? And your beautiful copper is now covered up by white, dusty insulation. Right? So, I mean, really at the, from a visual side of things, like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? Copper has its place. Plastic has its place, right? There's one flashback here. So there's one day I wish I used plastic. I was in a condo building, and we did a shutdown. I was replacing a riser, and in behind the kitchen. So I had to, underneath the kitchen cabinet, pull everything out, drain out, everything like that, just so I could gain access to everything. Cut open it's like 2 layers or 3 layers of drywall, something
For
like
fire
that.
rating,
For fire rating, right? And once you get into it, then there's all the plumbing stacks and all the water lines. And we were doing shutoffs per suite. There weren't any shutoffs, but we were installing shutoffs. And I had cut it out. This had that green. I don't know what it's called now, but it's green. It almost has like a denim feel to it. Blown insulation.
Yeah.
Highly flammable.
Yes.
And I knew this going in. You do your your hazards assessment and spot the whatever, right? So I'm in there and I filled up 4 garbage bags, like pulling the insulation out, because I was like, I don't want to fire. Like, this is just ridiculous, right? Pulling the insulation out, pulling it all out, had my spray bottle, sprayed everything down, did my steps that I was to do, right? And in the area I was working, I had my fire blanket and everything too. And, you solder on. It was just 3/4 inch pipe. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. So you're not there with an open flame forever, right? Solder it on, do my thing. It's like, okay, it's good, perfect. Clean up, spray everything down again just in case, right? It's like, nope, we're all okay, we're good. Go downstairs, turn the building on, away we go, right? Well, this is now 3 p.m. or something like that, all day doing isolation valves. Go back in to check to make sure no leaks once the water's on. And I hear what I thought was hissing. You gotta be kidding me. I'm like, after razzing my apprentice all day, like, you better not have any leaks. Like, I got somewhere to be this evening, right? Like, you better not have any leaks, right? I hear this hissing, like, you gotta be kidding me. That's what I get for packing the tools up, and you never pack your tools up. Right? So, go in and I hear hissing. Like, okay, fine. Let's find it. I'm all over, feeling everything. Like, well, nothing's leaking. There's no water anywhere. What's going on? And I'm looking. Rags, and I'm trying to find out, like, tissue paper still, like, trying to find out where this is coming from. Like, there's nothing leaking. Where's this hissing coming from? Well, the hissing was crackling. So, and as I'm leaving, like, underneath the cabinet, catch out of the corner of my eye this little amber, and that's all it was. It was just an amber. Oh, you get that sink, your heart just sinks to the bottom of your chest, and it's just like, oh no.
And it's go time.
And it's go time, right? It's like, no.
I knew I was going to be a firefighter one day.
Yes, here's my dream.
I've got life experience. Here I am.
So here I am. I'm like, oh shit, right? So I reach up and I'm like shoulder deep into this kitchen cabinet now. And what 3-4 garbage bags I've already pulled out wasn't enough, apparently. Just the heat from the torch set the insulation, 1.5 to 2 feet up on fire.
Wow.
And that insulation, that type of insulation doesn't like flash into flame.
It's a slow burn.
It smolders and it burns ambers and everything. Yeah. And this thing had been burning and migrating all day, right? So exactly, I'm like, oh shit. So I'm up there and I'm pulling it out and it's hot as hell. And I'm reaching out, my hand's getting burnt and it's falling down. Like, I'm going to have to like
shut the building down or
well,
something.
no, it's like, I'm going to have to break walls open to get to this. Right. So this poor old couple who was sitting in their rocking chair watching me frantic. I'm like, so I look at him like dead in the eye. I remember this. I'm like, there's a fire in your wall. I need to break open your wall and I will probably have to rip the cabinets down. And their eyes, big as saucers, melt to the floor. 24-inch pipe wrench comes out of the bag, and I just go, tiles flying everywhere. Like, it was just, there was no finesse at the time, right? She's calling 911. I had my fire extinguisher next to me. So once I had everything opened up, I'm dousing it with it. And then luckily the water was back on. So I have the kitchen sprayer out, spraying in there, just the whole thing. It was
You trained your whole life for that, man.
Oh, man.
Goose, get in here.
It was a circus act. But yeah, at that moment in time, I had the option to put in a fairly new plastic product, or well, not a plastic product, but a quick connect fitting at the time. And the old school mentality was like, I don't trust that. I'm going to solder. That's what I know. That's what I like to do. I'm familiar with it, right? At that moment in time, I should have tried the new product.
So knowing that
right?
now,
exactly. And knowing that now, some of the projects that I would quote or we would go into, I wouldn't be so closed-minded as to, copper solder, this, that, the other, right? It was, I still had reservations on some of the things that were out there just because it didn't make mechanical sense to me at the time or whatever my reasons things were. But that did open the eyes to being a little bit more friendly towards the newer products coming out in the plastics and stuff like that, right?
How do you think we should showcase that? Like, do you think it should be the technical schools, or do you think this is where those CECs would come in, where it's like,
that a continuing learning would be nice, right? Like, that's where you would like to see it, right? But I think the trade school has a due diligence to be like, here's the new products currently on the market. Right. And train the upcoming generations on, okay, this is the plastic, this is the copper, this is the lead and oakum we used to use. Here's a reference, but now
here's the progression
and here's how things have now come through, and here's the different products that you're going to see out there, right? Because, you used to only see copper now, or galvanized or black iron or whatever, right? Now it's anyone's guess as to what you go in. And if you're a trades guy and you have, your van, you can't be a rolling warehouse, right? They're just not big enough, right? Yeah, so, picking and choosing what you're most familiar with is kind of
what you have to do.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna this is a very, I feel like we can have these debates, copper versus PEX, fire tube versus water tube, this versus that. They're huge conversations, and we could sit here for an hour and talk about fire tube versus water tube. With the two of you guys, I know that I could just go. I'll just leave, and you guys can have an hour, 2 hours. Exactly. I want to pivot and maybe talk to you about something that Jeff and I did a duo episode on a few weeks ago. It revolves around recruitment.
I watched that.
Right, and I know that, and I'm relatively sure that you have a very different or slightly different opinion to us in terms of the philosophy and the ethics around what is commonly known as poaching, right?
Yeah.
You kind of heard our opinion. I'd love to hear.
Talk.
It's like, what did you think, and what's your take on it?
Well, my take on it, and it goes back to that, giving your guys and training your guys to leave and want to be taken, but treating them to stay. Right? There's that fine balance. Yeah, I would get heartbroken when one of my, the A-class techs would come to me like, "Yeah, I got a better offer over there for, $2 more." It's like, was it just the $2 more, or was it something else?
So you're leaving me for $80.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, you're leaving me for $2. Like, what's, I could have easily given that to you, but what's the real question, right? Was it not, what you needed at the time? And that open communication between, the employee and the employer and everything like that, and their team lead or whatever, right? That needs to be had, right? Because, if you're getting, texts or guys jumping from one ship to the next just because of $1 or $2 raise, or because there's a fancy new van, or there's, whatever it is, they're not leaving for that small amount of a wage. They're leaving because there's something else underlying that's pushed them to that point. And if you, as the lead or your mentor or whatever, haven't had that conversation or don't recognize that, that's on you. That's not on them.
So do you think that a lead should have a designated time period to sit down with each employee and to like hit that head on, not
Definitely.
wait for them to come to you and say, "Oh, I'm leaving," or and then you have to be like, "Oh, I'll match it," and it's like, well, why didn't you pay that to me before?
Exactly. Yeah. Show me your worth.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that. It's where it's
No,
if
you're
you
not
want
allowed to turn his mic off.
it's almost a question of, if you want something, ask for it. Don't.
There is that too, but again, that goes back to that open communication and that time period where you're sitting down,
Agreed,
face to face, and you're having that open conversation, right?
100%.
If you can't have an open conversation with your lead or your mentor or the service manager or the whatever whoever your superior is, if you're not able to have that conversation, something's broken.
So when guys would come to you and talk to you about wanting more money and you were like, it was a no, what would be your advice in that conversation?
Yeah. I mean, if they wanted more money and it was simply just because of more money, and I couldn't offer it or I couldn't get it to them at that moment in time, we'd sit down, we'd make a plan together, and we'd have dates, legitimate, hard dates that we would have to follow up on. Things of, okay, I can give you that, but we have to wait for these certain projects, or we have to wait for something.
But did you give them any criteria? Like, I can give you that, but I need you
there'd be, and that's why there'd be dates. It's like, okay, you want that? I don't feel you're at that level yet, and here's what you need to do. And if you can do it, and you can show me that you're capable of growing and moving and doing those additional tasks, perfect. You showed me you're able to grow. You showed me you're able to learn. You're not closed-minded, right? You're open to criticism. You're open to that next level, right? Mm-hmm. Then you know what? I'll give you the extra $2 because you proved to me that you're able to do that.
Yeah, because
Here's
I
the
think
next 4 steps.
You know what though? It's funny because I think that is something that you get somebody away, and then they get found out.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know how to do that? Like,
exactly.
I thought you knew how to do that. That's why I was giving you that. That's what my guys make, but they know how to do all this.
Have you ever? It comes down to that.
Thank you.
If I made that comment there, if you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room.
Yeah.
Right? It comes down to that. So if you're not looking for that next knowledge, and if you're a journeyman not able to give that knowledge to the next up and coming, how do you expect them to grow? Like you get the guys that just get, and I've been guilty of it in the past. I'm not gonna say I'm, whatever, right? But you get guys that get pigeonholed because they're really good at X. And
so every X call,
that person has to go because you're going to make your margin onto it, because you're going to come out on top. You're going to do well on the job, and there's going to be no problem.
Yep.
Right? Everyone's guilty of doing that.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
It's where that failure comes is from, okay, well, there's call X, guy Y. He really wants to learn X, but man, I really want.
So do you think it's the ownership of the individual to say, listen, I need to go and do more of these calls?
Well, again, it comes down to that communication, right? If you don't know guy X wants to do more than what he's doing, right? And you're asking him the question, hey, are you okay with this? Do you want to learn anything else? What do you want to, here's your smorgasbord, pick one. I'm okay. And he walks away. Well, how many times are you going to ask him and you're going to get the same, yeah, I'm okay answer, right?
Yeah, and then you just stop asking.
Right? So, I mean, it's not just a one or the other. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be willing to give and take, right?
We used to always frame it in a way that it was, if you only know this, if we stop getting calls for that, then you're sitting at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
It's hard truth, but
it is.
Yeah.
Right?
But it is the reality,
You want to try and get, as an estimator, or project manager, or service man, or whatever, right? You want to try and get your team to be as rounded as possible. So eventually, everyone can do every call.
Yep.
Right. That's the ultimate goal. Does it happen all the time? No. Right. But that's the ultimate goal. And if my guys were getting poached to another company, I'd be a little upset at first, but then I'd recognize, you know what? Good. I made them, that other company sees this guy's value. That means I've done my job, right? Yeah. Sucks that he's not with us anymore. Now I got to try and find the new X. And
you took that as a full reflection on you. I took
that as a reflection on the team and the, everything as a whole, right? Okay. It's like, okay, the group right now is firing on all cylinders. We're moving forward. We're doing what we can, right? Everything's good. Oh, this guy just left to that company. Okay. All right. He's moving because of the same dollar amount or something like that or whatever, right? And it's just, he's been with you for 10 or 30 years, which lifetime, right? But it's, if you're, and this kind of goes hand in hand with, if you're staying with the same company for like forever, you're not doing yourself as a trades guy any justice, because you're only exposed to what that company allows you to be exposed to, right? I've only done 3 companies. It's at the time I was like, yeah, badge of honor, 3 companies. I'm not a guy running around to 20 plus companies, right? But looking back, I do wish I did move around just a little bit more, just to get that exposure to.
Just to know when to use plastic pipe.
I mean, you talked about this earlier when you were like, I worked with somebody, I just couldn't crack that relationship, and then somebody else walks in, and then it's like somehow it clicks, right, with a client. Is that maybe an opportunity for someone who's, let's say, moving around to maybe not 20, but 6 as opposed to 3? Is that like a thing that they could? Is the personal relationships working with so many different teams, so many different styles, it gives them an ability to do that, or is that maybe overcrowd the brain and like confuse it with a certain strategy in that same 16-year period?
No, I don't think it overcrowds anything. I think it would be, a little bit of, if anything, it opens you up to something else, right? And if you take just 1% of that next company, that's 1% more that you had from the previous, right? And
so you used to do all the hiring as well.
Yeah.
And you used to see a resume. What happened with you saw
hated
somebody?
the resumes.
Yeah. So what happened if you saw somebody who was at 6 or 7 or 8 different companies?
In 10 years.
So there was a limit to what I had within, if let's say an apprentice, a 4-year period, or, this apprentice is a first year, let's say, and this first year apprentice within the first year of his trade has been to 20 different places, probably going to pass that one along, right?
But what if in the 4-year apprenticeship they were at 3 or 4 different companies?
Exactly. That would be someone I'd be interested in.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
In 1 year?
No.
Within their 4 years.
Oh, within their 4 years. Okay.
Yeah, because in their, I'm gonna use like a fresh moldable mind time frame, right? They've been exposed to bad, good, better, best, maybe, hopefully. That's the chance you're taking, right? So you're hoping that this fourth year apprentice or this brand new journeyman who's been to 6, maybe 7 places within the 4 years might have a little bit more world view on
recognition
of the entire system that is plumbing, right?
And even possibly kind of have a direction that they know they want to focus on. Yeah.
So, there's the, and then it'd be the, the exact opposite. If it was a journeyman that's been, within 4 years have been to 5 or 6 different places as a journeyman, I don't know if I'd.
What about generation?
If they've been there for like one place for
no,
a
I mean
or?
like if you take the last 10 years of somebody of like a millennial versus a Generation X versus an old school guy, right? Like baby boomer.
Yeah, I've had old school guys that don't know 24 volt circuits.
Yeah.
Right, and I've had
controls were
they
were the devil to
exactly
a lot of guys, right?
And I've had brand new journeymen that could dance circles on pneumatics versus an old school guy, which you wouldn't think would be possible.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's, you can't read that and you can't get that off a resume.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. Right. The resume gives you that quick snapshot into the person's past of what they might have been exposed to, depending on what companies they've worked for. Depending, and if whatever company they've worked for, you might know some projects, things like that, right? So, it gives them a snapshot of their past, but to really know or understand or hire someone, you have to sit down with them. And it's not just one conversation, it's got to be 2 or 3.
Yeah, I often... Go ahead.
I'm so on board with that. This is, I think, not even just from a trades perspective. I think that there's general qualification and disqualification you can do when you look at a stack of resumes. Yep. But I also think that I've never hired, and I'd love to be in a position one day to hire somebody.
Stressful.
And I look at it almost as a challenge. It is. I'm not denying that it's stressful. I look at it as a challenge to understand the perspectives of people. And I've been an entry-level employee who's had their resume, I'm sure, tossed out of 100 applications when I was straight out of school. And it's interesting because I know that if I had sat down with them, I could have convinced, because in a lot of those situations, I was the first opportunity I got in this industry. The first opportunity I got, period, was in the plumbing, heating, HVAC industry. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful for the individual for giving me an opportunity to come in and talk to them, even though I had, a 3-month internship in my 3rd year summer of school. Right, that's all really. A couple of internships here and there, nothing really substantial. And it was just like,
he knows
talk
how to grab
guy.
a mean cup of coffee.
No. So it's like you have a conversation with someone, and it's like you can. Maybe they're a completely different person from you. Don't connect, and it's a terrible mistake.
It's tough to read passion on a resume. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm like, if we ever get to the point with our organization where we're looking to hire people, I'm like, I kind of want to see people with experience, and I want to see people with zero experience, and I want to talk to them both, and I kind of want to gauge the interest and gauge. And sometimes, you're going to meet someone with no experience, they're going to be duds. And sometimes you'll be like, okay, I get why, I should have maybe not looked at this resume and not called you in for an interview. But at the same time, it could be the same with somebody who has 4 years of experience. They walk in and go, you're a rote memorization person. You're kind of robotic. And it's that apprentice, that, person who's done 4 years and got their journeyman ticket, but all they've done is hang, just staple stuff in the wall for 1 year and then hang certain type of pipe. It's just like they have like 4 skills for the 4 years because they worked on ultra high production,
hours,
right?
Yeah, they got the hours.
And that's what I think, going back to our earlier conversation, like I hated plumbing. I really did. I hated getting up at 5:30 in the morning to drive 45 minutes to then drive from the shop to a job site, or because you're an apprentice. It wasn't until I got into a boiler room, and it was somebody recognized that, like, it wasn't the physical part that I loved. It was that I wasn't using my brain. Yeah. And somebody actually sat down and talked to me and he's like, well, I'm going to put you on the boilers now. Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to stay here. Like, I love
this is what it's about. Yeah, here we go. Right. Like it's, I don't have, I'm not able to reflect on that kind of side of the trade because I've always been into service, right? It's, okay, someone has it's like a mechanic. You know, person brings a car to the mechanic. Yeah, it squeaks. Where is it squeak? I don't know, it just squeaks. Fix it. Okay. Like, as a service tech, you're not like, you're diagnosing, you're troubleshooting, you're using that mental side maybe a little bit more than just no disrespect, as a just hang pipe through a parquet type thing. Right?
I mean, I for someone who's not in the trades, and I always preface things that I say that could be extremely inflammatory with that. I feel walking into an empty room and creating something off of a plan is a little bit easier than walking into an already figured out, configured space and be like, something is broken, I got to fix it, or I know what's broken, I got to fix it using the existing.
There is a difficulty to putting something, like creating something from nothing.
Agreed. I'm not
keep in mind,
that.
you have to work with several different trades that also have things to put in that empty room.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I'm not discounting its difficulty.
It's an art. It really is an artwork to put something.
A lot of communication.
And I don't know if I could do it. Like, go from nothing to create that. Like, my mind would just be all over. It's like, oh, okay, I want to do this, and I want. Oh, well, maybe no, I'm going to do it. Like, I would just overthink it to death, right? Yeah. And
do you think that's because you've been in service so long and you're trained to kind of attack it from so many different angles?
So. Yeah, right. Like, it's not just boiler goes here, maybe a shiny gray one goes there, and then everything else goes around, right? Like, I don't know if I could, on a large scale commercial size like that, I don't know if I could do it. I would overanalyze it, and I would end up taking way longer than what it probably should.
It's funny. That is probably one of the things that I consider a strength now.
Yeah.
Because doing new construction, you can sit there and look at the whole blueprint and just sit there and go, oh man, like, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
Right. What I learned as a third year was just start.
Yeah.
And you'll get
one bite at a time. Just start.
Yeah. And then, like, you're doing one page at a time, and then all of a sudden you get to the last page and like, oh,
well, that wasn't so bad.
Oh, I get to go somewhere else next week.
Yeah. So no, it's but like, only being the service side from day one to when I traded the tools to a laptop type thing, right? Like, it's only been service, right? It's been trying to figure out someone else's problems, or it's been trying to figure out that silent leak, or that, code on a boiler that only happens when you're not there. Yeah. And how to diagnose
if only you had a Wi-Fi controller.
If only you had a Wi-Fi controller, that would let you know, solving today's problems, or solving tomorrow's problems today.
On that note, let's kind of shift. You talked about trading your tools for a laptop. On that note, what are you doing today?
Yeah, so today I'm selling boilers, if you haven't already guessed, but it's
the shiny gray ones with the Wi-Fi controls is what I've gathered so far.
Yeah. I was told not to name brands, so I'm not.
Well, go ahead. Let people know where you're at.
Yeah. Well, I'm at NTI Boilers right now. And I've been fortunate to be here now for 8 months, almost 9 months now. Jeez. Holy crap, that goes by fast. It's, it's different, but I love it. I enjoy it.
It was 8 months, and then COVID happened, and now it's 9. It was 6 months, and now it's 9.
That's true. Yeah. But I mean, I love it. It's been a great opportunity. It's been fun. Like, it's the boiler side and the hydronic side truly is a passion, and I do love it. And now just being in it all day, every day, helping the other contractors. They'll ask questions like, "Oh yeah, here, this is how you solve that problem," or I've seen that before. I've actually been there before in your in your shoes doing the exact same thing. This is what happened to me. Oh shit. Type thing, right? Like, it's coming from I think coming from like through the trade now into this role, and same as you, right? Like it gives you that added edge to someone who might not have been through the trade.
Absolutely.
Right. Instead of just slinging pamphlets and selling a product and reading spec sheets and doing that, you're
Fresh.
you're actually, you can speak to and you can sympathize to what they feel at that moment when they're calling you and they're pissed off and they're frustrated because they don't know what's going on, right? Or they're looking for, advice, like, what would you put in? How would you do this? Yeah, well, this is how I did it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's, but no, it's fun. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a new challenge. Honestly, I never thought I would be in the sales role. It kind of just popped up one day. And going back to that poaching thing, I had an open conversation with my VP at the company, and he understood everything. He's like, yeah, you know what? He's like, give it a go. Give it a try. If you need to fall back on something, just knock, right? So, I've been really fortunate.
That must be nice to have.
Yeah, it's that little security blanket, right? It's kind of nice to have that when you're going to a new role, uncharted territory. He's never been in it before, right? But no, it's been good. It's been challenging.
Any frustrations yet?
A little bit, It's been challenging to kind of, like I said, I don't get along with everybody all the time. I try my best, right? I've been told I'm a hard ass, which has come through
just in the last 9 months, or
but
you must be better than the guy you took over for. Then.
I don't know. Jury's still out on that one. But no, it's good. It's been challenging figuring out now how to talk to the engineering world, because I've never really been part of that. It's always been like top down. Okay, this is where it came from. And if we did have suggestions, you're right. Like your revision one and your submittal and this, that, and the other. And then you explain to them why they're wrong, and they never want to hear why they're wrong. Right. And it's been difficult for me anyways, transitioning into that next level of, okay, how do I show my product's worth? I know it's a great product. I've worked on it before. I've installed it. It's fantastic. Yeah. And I'm blessed to be working for him now, which is cool. But how do I, do that as a sales guy? And at first, coming into this role, I'd go out, okay, this is what I've seen other sales guys do. Okay, here's a brochure. Here's what it's all about. Here's the spec sheets. This is the product line. This is where we range. This is what we're used for. What do you think? They're half asleep they're asleep before I even begun.
Yeah.
Right. So once I figured out kind of, again, going back to that, what would I want to be done to me? Well, I'm a contractor. I'm a trades guy. To start with, maybe I should pull from that knowledge and talk about some of the past experience that I've had with my product now, and talk to those talking points a little bit. And then you can bring in and, lay it on lay your paperwork or do your PowerPoint or whatever it is, but just not talk to it, just have it there.
Yeah.
Right. And, what you were really good at is that communication, that relationship side of things. Right. Even just the short amount that I've had to, have the pleasure of dealing with you on, and you as well. You both had the same approach. It was, how can we get a relationship built? Like, shit, we were at Banded Peak a couple times having beers over whatever, right? And, building relationships. Yeah. So, coming back, and I'm like, I've been kind of pulling things from this is what these guys have done. How can I take what they've done plus my experience as a trades guy, kind of make it my own and come up with my own spiel type thing, right? So, and only recently did I figure out how to do that, right? So, there were a couple months of me falling flat on my face and, earning those road rash marks and things like that, right?
So you're a first year apprentice salesperson.
I'm a first year apprentice salesperson. Exactly.
How are you finding the engineers? Are they open minded? Like, you know, we talk about somebody who is a decision maker and influential on a project. How's the reception been with the engineers?
So at first doing the whole, here's the pamphlet thing, here's the whatever, it was like, okay, yeah, you know, here's another free lunch, or here's another, you know, guy doing his thing. And, you know, half the time before I would even finish, they'd be sitting back on their phone, you know, or on their laptop writing an email. It's like, okay, well, I've lost the room. All right, how do I gain it back? And it's really hard to gain a room back once you've lost them, right? So at first they were closed off just because I hadn't figured out what I wanted to do or how I wanted to sell Travis Loewen at NTI, right? It's a boiler, but I'm still selling Travis Loewen. Yeah. Because that's who I am, right? And that's, you know,
I think salespeople have to go through that, realizing they're actually the product.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're just trying to push the product, I mean, you're going to get the guys that the glazed over eyes, the go on the phone right away. It's like, well, we're here because we have to. Okay, we're 32 minutes in, only another whatever, right? Or something like that, right? Yeah. But it's, you know, it's selling yourself, right? And building the relationship of Travis Loewen and engineer, or Travis Loewen and contractor, or condo, or whatever it is, right? And only then do they start to realize that, okay, well, it's not necessarily the product. We're dealing with Travis. Travis is an awesome guy.
Yep. Travis answers his phone.
Right? It's say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say. Simple, right? And a lot of guys can't do that. Yeah. It's so infuriating.
Is it not amazing that that's all it takes to be successful? Yeah. Answer your phone and keep your promises.
Yeah. Yeah. Do what you're going to say, and you know, or say what you're going to do.
That's not just in sales. That's
everything.
Right? No, that's life, right?
And that goes like that. Goes
that's how you get a girlfriend to be your wife.
Exactly. Yeah, like that's how, you know, that's what I said before. Like every trades guy is a salesman, right? They're selling themselves.
Yep.
And I forgot that when I transitioned into this role. And, you know, learning that and recognizing that was like, holy shit. You know, like
so did that change your approach on dealing with other contractors?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So
instead of being, you know, with other contractors, like it's about bringing the industry up as a whole, not necessarily, you know, I'm my own and I want to make myself. Yeah, I do want to make myself successful. Like who doesn't, right? Yeah. But you know, it's creating a platform, or like a platform like this, to bring the industry up, or it's creating that camaraderie or that relationship where, yeah, you know what, if I, you know, even in a competitor's world, something like that, right? Like I've got friends who are selling other products. I call them all the time. Hey, I can't tell you the details, obviously, but I need your help. You know, what have you done in something like this? Here's my situation. This is where I'm at. What do you recommend? Right? And helping each other and bringing each other up brings the entire industry up.
As opposed to this whole, like, you know, I work on our stuff and you're competitive. Well,
it's like we're all competing for the next Stanley Cup. Yeah. It really isn't. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's where you get, you know, what's the word? You know, bottom level pricing, people just trying to like compete on any means possible, right? Yeah. I mean, it can be pricing, or it can be, you know, other things as well, where the competition, you know, turns the relationship aspect of it sour. I mean, my mentor, Greg Gillespie, who we had on a podcast, he always said this to me. He's like, we're in the plumbing industry, we're in the construction industry, we're in the electrical industry, we're in the people business, though, at the end of the day.
True.
Right? It doesn't matter what you do, we're in the people business. Yeah. If you're a plumber, you're trying to make sure the client understands what you're trying to, you know, tell them about, understand the value you're bringing, the comfort you're bringing, and make sure that, you know, they believe in you. Same way, you know, you're a service contractor, you're trying to, you know, explain to a condo board, you're trying to get them to believe in you, Travis, and then who is Travis works for X company. Yeah. Right. And so then therefore by default believing in the company and through you. Same way now you're going out to contractors. And I think that, I don't even know how manufacturers of technical product like boilers, like, rooftop units, like, significantly technical product can depend on anyone other than solid, well-spoken, relationship-oriented, professional, polished tradespeople. How can you depend on anyone other than the people that thoroughly understand the product inside and out, have installed, several products like that? I don't even know how people can move it. And I don't know how someone would trust me to go out there and sell. I don't know how someone did trust me. It's not that I didn't know what I was doing, or I didn't, but the experiential knowledge that someone brings to the table, like you guys, you've been in boiler sales, you are in boiler sales. I know plenty of tradespeople that are now on the sales side, whether it's boilers or something else. They have an edge like no one else. It's like a superpower, right? And as long as you can tap into that people relationship aspect and understand that, as opposed to, it's about the product. It's never about the product.
Well, yeah.
Right? The product matters after. It's a second
but
step.
It's that close second step, right? Yeah. But it's, definitely at the end of the day, everyone's dealing with people. It's a people industry, right? And,
absolutely.
The quicker you recognize that, the better off you'll be, right? As a, plumber, as an electrician, as a welder, whatever, like a trades guy, like whatever you're doing, it's, it's a people industry. And the sooner you recognize that and sell yourself as a person, the better off you'll be.
Okay, so here's our leaving thought. What's the one thing you want to see improved in the industry?
Oh, man.
One thing.
The one thing. That's so tough. Like it would go back to being, sell yourself, right? So many guys are not selling themselves. They're selling, the company. They're selling the...
So make it so you're approachable?
Yeah. Make it so you're approachable. So
don't sell the job.
Take ownership of yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Travis Loewen.
Thank you very
much. Trevor Loewen. It's been a slice.
Yeah,
thanks for coming
guys.
on, man.
No, it's been fun. I enjoy it. Thanks.
Beautiful. Cheers.